everybody. Welcome to our Mandela Effect stories. My name is HR. I'm your host. Tonight we have a guest, Gloria. She's going to tell her personal Mandela Effect story. And grab your drink and let's get started. Go ahead, Gloria, if you want to open with a statement.
Okay, get your coffee. That's that. I got mine. You got yours?
I got mine.
All right, let's do this.
All right. Um, Yeah, I wanted to share your story with us because I have a feeling it's going to be a good one. I know a little bit about it, but I know you're from Brooklyn, New York, right?
Yes.
And you moved, obviously. And when exactly did you start experiencing the Mandela effect?
For me, and I think this probably applies to a lot of people, I've noticed it for many years. The first time I really noticed it was about, let me see, my son is 20, about 15 years ago. I noticed changes, and I never really thought anything about them. I would see certain things change, and I would just be like, okay, I guess, I don't remember. Maybe that's the way it is, or I never really paid that much attention to it. I was like, oh, that's odd. And I would just go about my everyday thing. And I never really thought about it.
Right, right. What kind of things were changing for you?
15 years ago,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird because I would get into a conversation with my son, and he was just like this little brat. And we would argue, and he would go, no, you told me the other day at the party I could do this. And I'm like, what party? What do you mean, Ma? He says, the party that we went to. And I'm like, we didn't go to a party. What do you, and that was, and then in the beginning, I was like, okay, you know what? He just wants to get his way. And that's probably why he's just trying to throw me off track. But then
Right.
I noticed it started happening a lot more. And, we would get into arguments, and he would be like, okay, so I have this and we're going to do this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I never said we were going to do that. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he would say it like word for word, like we were standing in the kitchen, and remember, you had that in your hand, and you said, and I'll tell you, HR, I have no idea what this kid is talking about. And I'm like, okay, something's not right.
Yeah.
That would happen a lot, a lot. And then my dad would do the same thing. He'd call me up and he's like, where are you? And I'm like, home. He's like, why are you home? You said you'd be here at 10 o'clock. I'm like, what? I never said that. You're 3 hours away from me. That's something I would plan a week in advance. I'm not.
Yeah.
And it started happening more and more. And I said to myself, I didn't think I was going crazy, nothing like that. I just said to myself, something's up.
Something's not right. Yeah.
Something's not right. Exactly. You
And
know,
did you think that maybe at that point, um, maybe something was changing and you just didn't notice it? Like, do you think you were shifting at that time?
um, I don't. I don't know if shifting, because the word really didn't pop into my head as far as
Yeah. Yeah.
anything like that. To me, I just felt like something was up, something was changing, something is wrong. And I became like an observer of everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I was really aware I made it a point to be constantly aware of my surroundings. And I would do things like, you drive down the block and you go to the store and you drive down the block, you're waiting at a light, and, you see a building and you count the windows and you count
Right.
the parking spots, and just to make sure that they don't change. And I've done that for a really long time. And I actually still do it today, you know,
And
and, huh?
were they then?
Sometimes, yeah. Not as drastic as they are now, but
Yeah.
it would be painted a different color. And I would say to myself, wow, they really painted that really quick because that was overnight, or, things like that. And I still
Yeah.
kept saying to myself, no, something's not right. Something just isn't right. But then, you get caught up in everyday life and things, and,
Yeah.
you kind of just put it on the back burner. And whenever I would have time to myself, which was not often,
Yeah.
then I would reflect, and I would sit and I would start thinking about things, and I kept a journal. I kept a
Right,
journal.
right. And so you wrote down all these things that you were saying. Did you experience it? Excuse me. Uh,
Bless you.
did you experience like any changes in pictures or people that changed in some way that wasn't like they were the day before or like that?
That started happening when I first found out about the Emmy. Then all that started changing. Actually, it has happened. I had my girlfriend recently send me a picture of us from 10 years ago. She had texted to me, and I don't know who that person is in that picture because
Wow.
that's not how I perceive myself. I just don't know who that person is at all.
So you don't even remember the picture being
No, I
taken.
don't remember the picture at all. And she had sent me quite a few, and I don't remember. Just don't remember being in that picture. I don't remember anything about it. And when I look at myself, I don't remember looking like that in that year in 2007. She sent me one recently, and I was like, that's ridiculous because I don't know who that person is.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Now, how about your friends, your family? Did they change?
um after I experienced the Mandela effect, I hate that word effect.
Try a quantum effect.
Quantum effect. Yeah, how about after I woke up, after I experienced that, um, yeah, a lot of changes, in friends, and you know, when I first came across the Emmy and I started watching the videos, and kind of like what everybody else went through, you're glued to the computer for like 2 weeks, and you got like a total of maybe 3 hours sleep in 2 days, and you're like, what is this thing? And you're going, and it's tripping you out, all these things, especially with the Statue of Liberty being from New York. I've always known it to be in Ellis Island, and the torch was never closed.
Right.
Well, those things, and I was so into it, and I was going crazy with it. And wow, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, next question. The Statue of Liberty always gets me.
Uh,
That's just
well, I asked about the changes in your family, your
oh
friends.
yeah, yeah. And I started, especially recently, I have to say this year, I noticed that I'm kind of I kind of detached myself from everybody. I didn't do it on purpose. It's just something that kind of happened to me. You
Yeah,
know, I could go to a gathering, which I prefer not to. I like to kind of be a loner lately,
yeah,
but I could go to a gathering, and family members and friends and everybody could be there, and I could be in a room full of 100 people and feel like I'm a sore thumb,
wow,
like completely just don't belong, completely different. Where maybe at one time I would have fun and I would laugh and I would talk, but now it to me just I don't know. I sit there and observe, and it just seems so fake. Not all my friends, some of them are experienced the ME, and to me they feel real, but other people to me just feel very robotic. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
It's so different now. That warmth is gone. Like it's just gone.
And when did you wake up?
Um, the end of 2015,
Okay, so you were a little ahead of the curve.
and it was a really weird, weird experience.
Okay, and can you tell me about it?
Yeah. I have this written down also in my journal, and I was reading it the other day again. Um, 6 months before I knew what the ME was, um, I woke up one morning, and I remember everything being so vivid. The colors were so vivid. Like everything around me. I'm going to try to like explain it, but it's difficult because there's no words to actually explain it, but I'm going to do the best I can. The colors were so vivid that it looked like everything had a life of its own. Like the color green was alive, the color
Okay.
orange, everything just had a life of its own. And I remember looking around and I'm going, what's going on? And I thought there was something wrong with my eyes. I really didn't know. And it kind of scared me a little bit. And I was sitting on the couch and my son comes in the room. He's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, you know what, sweetheart? I says, everything just looks so vivid and it's popping out. It's just popping out. Not
Right.
like it pops out now in a really weird kind of way. There's no words in the human language to explain it really. And that lasted. And I called my girlfriend up and I was telling her, and it was absolutely beautiful, you know. And
Yeah.
I would go in the car and I would drive around. I would look at things and the trees look alive, and every leaf and the grass, like every uh, piece of grass, blade of grass looked like it was alive.
Hmm.
And it lasted for about 3, 4 days. I don't remember exactly, 3, 4 days. And I woke up one morning and it was completely gone. And what I experienced from that day on till now, all the colors became dull.
Really?
Completely, and I still see that way now. So dull. And in the beginning, I didn't like it. And I remember telling my girlfriend, and I was crying. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like the way things look. Everything looks fake to me. It doesn't, there's no life to anything, no plants, no flowers, nothing. Everything just looks very dull. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like looking at a color form. Remember the color forms when you were little and you kind of,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
everything looked fake, flat, and like I said, it's still like that today. And I never got back that. I don't see the way I used to see before, like 2 years, 3 years ago, whatever. Color never came back for me. It's just very, very bland, you know. And then 6 months later, I had found out about the ME, and that's when I started doing research. And and I said, "Oh, okay, that must be it. Things are changing."
Yeah.
And
And from that time forward, obviously, the changes sped up, uh, and it became more pronounced. Obviously, um, I know I've experienced uh, multiple changes. The biggest one I note all the time is my sign at the McDonald's, my dollar menu. It
uh,
always changes when we have a shift. It'll disappear, then it'll reappear. And while it's gone, nobody knows anything about the dollar menu. And then it comes back. And I've seen that. I saw when the K appeared on the Chick fil A. I was there the day before. It was a C. I pulled up next to a truck as I was getting off the parkway with my daughter. And I look over and I see that there's a K on it. And I said, no. And my daughter said, Dad, it was a C yesterday. So we had to drive down to the restaurant, and sure enough, there was a K there now. And I was like, wow. And then the next day, we noticed that a sign appeared next to the Kmart. I mean, not Kmart, Walmart, and it wasn't there. I mean, we didn't, it wasn't there, and then it was, and it was rusted, and it looked like it had always been there.
he's been there,
And that was the start of seeing my personal MEs, and lots of other changes. Obviously, little changes in people's attitudes,
yeah. Hmm.
changes in other things. But um, what sort of large changes did you notice in your life?
Um, actually, I've changed a lot. I changed a lot. Not spiritually, but the way I look at things. Like I said, I became more of an observer of
Mhm.
everything around me. That changed a lot. But I think the biggest thing for me is friends and acquaintances and just how I used to interact with them because I just don't feel that I don't feel their aura. I'm one, I could feel a person's aura, or you could feel their warmth, or you could look in their eyes and you feel their soul. You could, to me, that's like the biggest change and actually the hardest, you know.
Yeah,
The interaction just isn't there. And I've had friends for 30 years that I just don't they call me and we talk about, dumb things like, oh, I had this and I'm making this for dinner. And I sit there and these things mean nothing to me anymore.
Wow.
It just doesn't. And it's not like I'm saying, oh, because I'm depressed. No, I'm far from depressed because I feel like I can't talk to them about this. They don't understand it. So if they're not understanding it, either they're a bot or they're just like a fill-in. I don't know, so I just don't even go there. And the little things that they're talking about just honestly means nothing to me. And sometimes I just want to yell out, you're worried about making pasta tonight or fish and you can't make a decision. Meanwhile, reality's changing before everybody's eyes. There's so many more like important things.
Yeah, right. I understand completely. You know, we have been researching all kinds of things since 2016 when I my awakening happened, and I've seen so many different things that so many rabbit holes that I jumped down. I so many theories that I followed up, and they ended up not being an answer. And I think the thing is, these things are the reason people are the way they are. And I've come to this conclusion that I think they're being somehow mind controlled. And I think that the people that are awake are the ones that aren't. And the people that are asleep are the ones that are. And somehow, some way, somebody, and I don't know who, it could be deep state, it could be anything, I don't know, is mind controlling these people using, maybe cellular towers or what have you to get the signal out, and they want everybody to have a wireless device. So maybe it's going through the wireless device and into the person. And, they're bringing out this 5G and they're rushing it out. And, it's they didn't test it on humans, so they have no idea what's going to happen to humans once they turn this thing on. And I wonder, is this uh, being done so that they can gain more, greater control over us? Is it done to possibly? We've been having smart dust dumped on us for years, or we've been eating it, and have all these nano tech in our bodies. Maybe this 5G gives them control over that, a greater control anyway. What do you think?
Well, I mean that's a theory that's out there, and I kind of believed that at one time too. I was like, okay, these people are asleep and they could be woken up, but the more that I observe the people that are asleep, the more I start to see that I honestly don't think that they are under mind control because even if somebody was, they still have an essence about them. They still have a warmth about them. It's not like, you go to a funeral and you see a body in the casket and it looks like them, but their essence are gone. And I feel that in people. So to me, it's more like their soul is kind of not there, and it makes me believe that they're just fake.
Hmm.
And when you read the Bible, and maybe we are the 144,000, maybe everybody else is just here for the experience to continue the story, so we all have an experience when we come here.
Hmm.
I mean, that's how I look at it. I mean, it could be anything, but that's the more I observe people, the more I see that it's just an empty shell. It's not someone who is being brainwashed, because even if they were, you would still feel
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I understand what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Um, I have thought I went down that path for a while, thinking that they were non-player characters like in a
Yeah.
video game.
Right.
And, but then you know I've come across a lot of things that point to somewhere else. Like, why would they be rushing the 5G technology? Why would they be doing all these chemtrails and smart dust and geoengineering and all these different technologies that they're utilizing, if they weren't using them to control people. And further, and this is more important, they're setting up these smart grids so that they can move people into cities so that they can gain greater control over them, through, maybe a world government. Maybe they want to, gain more power, and they feel that they're lacking control at this point, you know.
Well, the,
So, hmm?
the way I look at it is like the people that are asleep, I think they're just, like I said, fill-ins.
Hmm,
But the people that they're trying to control are the people that are up, perhaps.
maybe.
I really don't think they're going to be successful at that. I mean, I believe that they throw certain frequencies our way because we could feel it. We get nauseous, we get migraines, you can't get out of bed. They're doing something
Right.
to throw us off track, and you feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's either we have a sudden shift and that's what's happening, or which I don't know so much about the shifts, but or they are throwing something in the airwaves, and it's knocking us out, but it's not making us forget anything.
Yeah.
And then you can go and say, you know what, your friend, like for instance, I had a friend that was really into the ME, noticed all the changes, and now he wants nothing to do with it. He doesn't believe in it. He doesn't care about it. It's like, what happened to you?
Yeah.
So maybe they are tampering with frequencies and stuff like that to kind of put the people that are up asleep. But I'll tell you one thing, it's not going to work.
Well, I think the problem is that people get scared sometimes, Um, the more they see when they run into something that they just can't face, that they'd rather run away from it than confront it. It's you know this fear of the unknown, and the enemy is a big old unknown. We're coming up with theories. We've got lots of them, but ultimately we don't know for a fact that we're right. We can speculate till the cows
Right.
come home, but
Right.
in the end, the bottom line is we just don't know. And I think that sometimes that scares people, and they would rather run away and stick their head in the sand and try to forget it than,
Hmm.
than to face it, And maybe they weren't ready to see it in the beginning anyway.
Well, like that goes back to my kid, and he sees the Emmys, and some things he doesn't. Some things he agrees with what's going on now, and some, it's back and forth with him.
Yeah,
And he turned around to me and he says, "Ma, just let me be a kid." And he's in his 20s, and he's just like, "Just let me be a kid. I just want to live my life." I'm aware it's happening. I just don't want to know. He says, "I just want to have the experience of just being a guy."
right, right.
And I'm like, "Okay." And he sees it. He sees it. He calls me up sometimes and tells me the weird things that happen, but then he goes back into, "You know what? I just want to be who I am." And I'm like, "Okay." And I could respect that.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately we have to live our lives day to day. I mean, the day to day stuff still has to be done. We still have to eat. We still have to
Right.
sleep.
Right.
People still have to go to work. They don't
Right.
have a choice. But it seems like it's been building up though.
Oh yeah.
Month after month, week after week, it just appears that it's getting more and more pronounced. You know,
Uh,
uh, shifts are getting bigger,
yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and people are way more affected. Than they were, say, 6 months ago. You
I
know,
agree. I agree. And I actually think that it's us that are doing it.
yeah, it's possible that we're affecting it.
Yeah, collectively we are affecting it. We definitely are. We're looking for the changes. We're looking at signs. We're checking pictures all the time. We're observing it. We're observing it. That I actually think that we're changing it. We're creating it.
Well, yeah, I in the first episode um, of this show, I brought up the idea of the double slit experiment
Right. Right.
and how reality changed when it was seen
Right.
as opposed to acting differently when it wasn't.
Right.
And I wonder, I mean, I know that things occur either way, but would they occur differently if we were watching them as opposed to not watching them? You
Well,
know?
that isn't that what, like, Einstein said? He says, "I would hate to think," and I don't I'm not 100% on how he said it, but he says, "I would hate to think when I go to sleep at night to think that the moon doesn't exist."
Yeah, exactly.
But you see, that whole observer thing, I mean, I think there's a fine line with that because I understand when you observe something, yes, it could change the outcome and all that stuff. But then I go back to, okay, so if you didn't observe it, did it really happen? And the answer is, yeah, it still does happen, even though you're not observing it, because when you're sleeping, if an airplane crashes in your yard, you're sleeping, you're not even aware of this reality, but yet that plane crashed and woke you up. So
Right.
you weren't there to observe it, but yet it still happened.
Right. But the question is, if you had observed it, would it have crashed differently or would it have crashed at all?
Right, right,
So
right,
then you're looking at like Schrodinger's cat.
right, right. Or your
It's
perception, right,
it's
exactly.
alive and dead simultaneously.
Right,
So kind of like that, when you're asleep, you know, things act a certain way. Granted, they continue.
right,
If you were watching it happen, would it have happened the same way? We don't know.
right.
And that's a question. And the only answer we have is that double slit experiment, where when we didn't watch it, the photon acted one way.
Right. And then it acted like a wave, right,
It went back in time, changed its action, and came back through again. So it's possible that reality can reset and then happen again without you actually knowing it. I mean, that's what happened in the double slit experiment. You
or
know,
was the observer, except, not when they did the camera, I'm saying a person who observed it. Did
right?
he want to see that? Did he cause that to become a wave instead of, was that him? For instance, like you look at that thing that was going around the internet, that Yanni and what was
Yeah,
it, the whole thing.
yeah,
And I got a bunch of us and I says, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna play it and we're all gonna say out loud, do I hear Yanni? And we all did it and we heard Yanni. And I says, okay, now we're gonna say, do I hear Laurel? And every time we did it, it said exactly what we said out loud.
right. But then you have to ask the question, how much of that was thought control based on what you said? For
Right,
instance, you told them to hear Yanni.
right.
So then they were going to automatically listen for Yanni.
Right, right,
Whereas, you told them that it was going to be Laurel. So even if Yanni happened, they ignored it and they listened for Laurel.
right.
You
But
know,
it shows you how influential, like, I mean, how words can actually create.
oh yes, oh yes, absolutely.
When you go to that and you go, and it always says, and like I said, I'm not religious. I don't have a religion, but I have read the Bible and other books, and it always goes to say, it says in there too, like, I mean, in the beginning, there was the word, and the word created everything. So, well, be careful with your thoughts and be careful what comes out of your mouth because words create.
Right. And
And
you also see that there was an experiment on this, which they took rice and they put it in three different
yes,
glass,
yes.
jars.
Hmm.
And one they loved, one they ignored, and one they hated.
Hmm.
And they threw hate at it. And the experiment showed that the bottle that was loved was as fresh as when they put it in there. And that was like after 2 weeks.
Even with the water, they did it with the water. I
Yeah.
can't remember the guy's name that did it with the water. Yes,
Right.
ice crystals. Yes,
Exactly.
so our words are very powerful. So we actually, what we speak, it looks like we could kind of create reality in a
Right.
second, just like a brief kind of thing. Yeah, kind of weird.
It's also possible that we link our minds somehow, and our linked minds together simultaneously make things occur.
And that, case in point, the Mandela effect.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. But what happened to the people who didn't see it like you? I mean, you started seeing it 15 years ago.
But I
Not 2 years ago when everybody else, well, not everybody, but a majority of the people, started seeing it.
But if you, I bet you anyone listening to this would look back now and go, wait a minute, I remember something like that happening to me 20 years ago. And I remember, and you start to remember a lot of things because I don't think that the Mandela effect is something that just happened. I think it's always been there and it didn't amplify until we observed it and acknowledged it. And
Mm.
then it took off because seriously, you could sit there and you could sit back and think of things that happened maybe when you were a teenager and say, wait a minute, now I remember that and I remember this and I remember doing my homework and it disappeared and there was no explanation. You can go back and you
Yeah,
can remember.
yeah,
So I don't think that the Mandela effect is something that happened 2 years ago. I think it's been around since day one. We just didn't observe it or give it that attention.
maybe. Um, but I want you to tell your story about your hotel.
Oh, I was looking at pictures of that today. Oh, it makes me nauseous.
Yeah, could you tell that to the audience? Because I'm sure they'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I go to a 7-Eleven not too far from my house, and I always go to the same 7-Eleven. And there's a hotel, and it's called La Quinta.
Yeah,
Okay, and it's always been like a 10-story hotel, really pretty, clean. And I'm always saying, because when my friends come over, they're like, no, we want to stay at a hotel. We don't want to bother you and everything like that, whatever. Or my friends or my son's friends come in, and I'm always like, stay at the La Quinta because it's clean, it's nice, really pretty.
right.
And I went by there the other day, just going to get my coffee, and I was on the phone with Teresa. And from the corner of my eye, I look at the hotel and I drove out of my lane, almost hit the car in front of me, and we both almost went into the ditch. I look at this hotel and I'm like telling Teresa on the phone, I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. She's like, what's the matter? I'm like, I can't, I gotta go, I gotta go. I just kind of like short circuited.
Yeah,
And I'm looking at this hotel and this hotel now became like a 3-story hotel, not counting. I mean, it's really two because there was nothing on the ground floor but the walk-in, the office.
right,
And it looked like the hotel has been there uh, forever and it looked condemned. And there was no big, beautiful yellow and green and white sign in front of it anymore. It was off to the corner. I just can't explain it. So I told myself, you got to calm down. You know what this is. It's okay. It's okay. So I called my son up and I asked him, and I actually saved the text messages. And I says to him, "What is the hotel? What does it look like?" And he's like, "Oh, he says that's a 10-story, about 10 stories." He says 8 stories, 10 stories. I
right,
said, "Yeah." I says, "I'm going to show you a picture. Tell me what this is." So I send him the picture, and actually, I had to drive by the place 3 or 4 times before I could actually stop and take a picture. That's how nervous I was.
wow,
And I send him the picture and he goes, "What are you showing me the garage for?" He says, "What is this, the hotel garage, the back of the building?" And I says, "No, honey, that's the hotel." And he just stopped and he's like, "Ma," he says, "Are you kidding me right now?" He's like, "That's the hotel." And he didn't know what to say. And I was like, if I have to fly this kid down here so he could see this, because I'm
yeah.
not handling it too well, and then after an hour, I accepted it as always. And I'm like, okay.
Well, that's what happened. Did you go inside and ask?
No, I actually asked the guy in 7-Eleven while I was on the phone with Teresa, and
Okay,
I said to him, "The La Quinta," I says, "Wasn't that a 10-story hotel?" Let me HR, let me tell you something.
yeah,
This kid, he's the manager of the 7-Eleven, and he is the nicest guy. I know him for a long time. He looked at me like if looks could kill.
really,
Yes. He looked at me with the meanest look on his face, and he looked at me and goes, "No, it's always been 2 stories." And Teresa was on the phone with me, and I was like, "Okay, you have a good day, Jason, bye." Never spoke to me that way. The sweetest
wow,
kid in the world. Yeah. And I was like, I gotta go home. I have
wow.
to go home. Yeah. And I had another strange thing happen to me the other day.
Okay,
Yeah. There's there's a shop that I go to, like a automotive store. I don't want to say the name of it,
Yeah,
and everybody in there knows me. I've had many cars, and they all know me by name, and they know my son. They know us really well.
yeah.
So I haven't been there in, I don't know, probably about 3 months. Yeah, about 3, 4 months. And I go in there the other day, and everybody's like, "Hey, Gloria, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hey, what's up, everybody?" Like, "Hey, what do you need?" Whatever. And this one guy comes over to me that works, and I've never seen him before in my life, and he comes over to hug me. And I just kind of like
Wow.
pull back because I don't know who he is. So he actually comes and he wraps his arms around me, and my arms are just like straight down because I'm not hugging him back. I'm like, who is this person?
Yeah.
He goes, "Hey, Gloria." He goes, "It's so nice to see you." He goes, "We get to see you 2 days in a row." He says, "How'd that thing work out for you yesterday?" And
Um.
I looked at him and I said, "Good." And he goes, "Good. I'm glad to hear that." He goes, "I really enjoyed our conversation yesterday." He says, "Yeah, me too." And I almost threw up
Wow.
because I don't know what he's talking. I've never met him, and I haven't been there in months. And the funny thing about it is, the only reason why I went there is because I have a little sticker on my car. It's a skull,
Yeah.
and my skull changed. Okay,
Really.
completely different skull. And I went back to the store to buy the one that I originally had.
Yeah.
And that's when this happened. And I was like, I have no idea who this person was. And everybody's like, "It's nice seeing you again. Nice seeing you again." Oh, you. And then the girl behind the counter goes, "Oh, back so soon." I'm like, "Oh my God."
Wow.
I'm like, "What's going on?" Yeah, that kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would do it.
I'm
If
like, there's not enough tranquilizers in the world for this.
yeah, I could see how that would be a problem. I've heard so many stories of people just having, weird experiences, and you know, they wake up the next day and their family has changed, their wife has changed, their husband has changed, their children are changed. They might even be a different sex. What do you do with something like that? You wake up and the person next to you is no longer the person you went to bed with. You know and they don't even remember anything about. You have no idea what they're talking about. You have no idea. Things have changed, colors, the schemes of rooms. I've heard all of these things. And what do you do about that? And I mean, it's very similar to what you're talking about. You walk into a store that you haven't been in months, and everybody looks at you like, yeah, you were here yesterday. No.
No,
wasn't wasn't me.
no, I think I have to say, I think the Emmy is only for the strong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't strong,
I,
you freaking.
we were chosen because God must know we were very strong people.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you go nuts.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah. Regardless, yeah. Even knowing, I mean, we all know what the ME is. We're all experiencing it, but every time something happens, it still punches you in the stomach, and you're like,
Sure.
oh, minute. Give me, my son recently came to visit. Can I tell the story or?
Go ahead, please.
My son recently came to visit, and there's a place, a little restaurant that opened up. And let me tell you, HR, it is the ugliest restaurant I've ever seen. It looks like a tire shop. And I always told my son, this restaurant is so ugly. I can't wait for it to close down. Nobody even knows it's a hamburger place. And I won't even drive near the parking lot. It's like, it just annoys me. I don't know why. It always irked me. So my son came down to visit me recently, and we drive by it. And I turn around to him. I says, "I can't believe this restaurant is still here. It's so disgusting." And he looks at me and goes, "Ma, do you know how many times we ate there and you said the food was delicious?" And I was like, "Wait a minute." I said, "I've never eaten there. I won't even allow myself to drive in their parking lot because that place annoys me so much." He goes, "You're insane." He goes, "I even remembered what you ordered."
Wow.
And I said, "Tell me what I ordered." And he just looked at me and goes, "Enough." I said, "Tell me what I ordered." And he wouldn't. And
Wow.
we dropped it. And I says, "Let's just drop it. Drop it."
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? I mean, now the next question is that your son, or is that somebody else's son? That just happens to look like your son.
My my son, when the whole thing when it first started, and I had asked him, I was like, I really didn't want him to be involved in this, but
Yeah, of
I,
course.
where is the Statue of Liberty? Because he went there so many times, and he says it's on Ellis Island, and I smiled and I knew it was my son.
Yeah.
But then we go so back and forth with so many things, and it's like, wait a minute, first you're on this Emmy litany, and now you're experiencing things that other people are experiencing. That's change. It's like it goes back and forth with him.
Wow.
It really goes back and forth, and that's kind of weird. Like I don't understand it, so I don't know if he's popping in and out,
Yeah, it could
or,
be.
or if I'm popping in and out. I don't know who's popping anymore.
It's hard. It's hard to say, And also, the other thing that I've noticed about DME is a lot of spatial type changes, like time. Time doesn't act right anymore. It's fast. It's slow. It stops. It speeds up. You know, I've even heard of people who got stuck in time bubbles where they're driving down the same street for 20, 30 minutes. And when they get to the stop sign, they're back at the beginning of the street where they started. And, it was just a big loop for like 30 minutes. And then finally it breaks and they run for their house, and they're worried that they're going to get caught in it again, you know? Uh,
I believe that, yeah.
have you ever experienced anything like that?
A lot, yes. I had to go to another county over. And I was like 50 miles away, and I knew it would take me about 45 minutes. And I remember getting in my car, turning down the street, going on the main strip to get there. And HR, I am telling you, I looked at the clock and I was going on some interview and I was like, okay, I know I'll be there at this time, which will give me 15 minutes to get it together and get my speech and all that stuff. And
Right, right.
I looked at the clock and it was like 10 after 12. And I figured I'd be there by quarter to one, 10 to one.
Hmm.
And I got down the block, I got on the main strip and I was daydreaming as I'm driving. You're on autopilot.
Yeah,
I don't know how that works, but thank you for whoever's driving for me because
all
sometimes I
right.
go off in a trance.
Yeah,
And the next thing you know, I'm at a red light and I'm like, wait a minute, does that say Coconut Point? I says, how I'm here? How could I be here? I looked at the clock and only 11 minutes passed.
wow.
And I'm like, how could this? And I was shaking, but this was before I knew about the Emmy. And I
Right.
was shaking. I was like, how is that possible? How is that possible? So now I put it to the test. If I know I have a 3 hour ride ahead of me, I'll
Yeah.
do the same thing I did that day. I start to daydream. And I noticed that it goes really, really fast. I've done 3 hour drives in like 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Wow.
So something about not paying attention to time kind of just makes it slow down or not exist. I don't know. But even waking up in the morning, I mean, it's been like you wake up in the morning, you do a couple of things, and next thing you know, I'm closing the shades and it's time to go to bed. And I'm like,
Right.
what did I even get done today? Like, where did it go?
Yeah, I've had that happen to me many times. When I write, I notice that it happens. I'll look at the clock and it was set 8 o'clock, and I'll start typing, and I could write, 5,000 words, and I'll look back at the clock and it still says 8 o'clock.
Hmm.
I look at my computer clock and it says 8 o'clock. So, how did time just stop for that period of time?
I think, like I said, I think it's like we lose conception of time because we're engulfed in what we're doing, and
Right.
somehow it stops it. That's the only thing I could think of because, like I said, I was in a daydream, and you were writing or whatever you were doing,
Yeah,
writing.
writing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get so engulfed in what you're doing that I really think that we stop time.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
really do.
that's kind of amazing, huh?
Yeah, I mean that's really what it looks like though, because there's really no other explanation.
But these other things, I mean, how do you change a, 7-story building to a 2-story building or a 3-story building? How does that even happen? I mean, what can you know, uh, how can you even find an answer for that? You can't even, say anything. I mean, like it was one building and now it's another building. You know?
And it's a completely different construction when, because that hotel has a specific way, like the Holiday Inn, or, a specific look. And
Right,
it looks like a ranch, like it looks like something out of a Western. I've never seen anything like it.
right, right.
I was so bothered by it that this happened a few days ago. And what was it? 2 days ago, I actually drove 40 miles away from my house because I knew that there was another one there. And I
Wow.
pulled into the parking lot and took pictures of it.
Wow.
And when you look at the two, it's like, wait, this is a rundown shack and this is a really nice hotel.
Well, then what you have to do is you have to ask yourself a question: when was this one built?
The one, you know what? I tried looking that up and I couldn't find anything on the one near my house. I don't know when it was
I'd
built.
I'd stop by and ask them, when was this built?
I look at it this way. I look at it, I couldn't care less if somebody built that with a spoon. All I know is it is now 3 stories when it was, and you know the funny thing about it, I went on their reviews, okay? Because I
Yeah,
wanted to see if I could find someone that said something about being on the top floor.
right.
And I found one review that came pretty close, and a girl wrote, "Oh, the hotel smelled like mildew and it was horrible. And I had a room facing the parking lot. I wish I was on a higher floor so I would have had a better view." Now, what higher floor? The second floor? You would have seen the trees too. So,
You could
you
have
know what I'm
stayed
saying?
on
You
the
wouldn't
roof.
have been any closer to the ocean. You would have had the same scenery. So
Yeah.
that kind of validated that for me. And that was written, I believe it was like 2 years ago. Somebody
Wow.
who wrote that. Yeah, for that hotel. So I was like, and I actually took a picture of it and saved it. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, thank you. But I don't need that validation, but I think my brain does.
Yeah, you got to figure this out. How could this even happen? Because a friend of mine said that he drives to work every day, the same exact route to work and home, and he has a Chinese restaurant right up the street from where he lives, and he drives by it every day. And that night he came home, and it was a Chinese restaurant. He got up in the morning, and it was a sandwich shop, a morning breakfast sandwich shop, and it looked like it had always been there.
Right.
There was no Chinese restaurant anywhere around. The signage looked like it had been there forever.
Yeah.
Nothing. Everything looks like it had been there.
And how did he react to that? How did he,
Oh, he freaked out because what do you do? It's the same as your hotel. I mean, you
yeah.
drive by this place every single day. I mean, how could it change overnight? Literally in 6 hours, about 6, 7 hours.
You know what I noticed too? When when these things happen, you sit there and you kind of try to make sense of it and you try to say, it's the ME and you know that things are changing and you have to understand it and you try to comfort yourself and then something takes over like in your brain or your mind, something just takes over and goes, okay, let's just put to rest for now.
Yeah,
Just
right.
put it away. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make you get to the point where you start tripping out really bad. It just calms you down and it goes, let's just put it away. Don't even think about it anymore. And then you're ready for the next one. And the same thing. Once you trip and you're doing this, then it just gets put away.
Right, right. And I
And it
think,
does it automatically by itself.
yeah, I've seen it too. Yeah, where you just kind of let it go, and
Right.
that's the only way you can survive nowadays. But the other thing is, we have to kind of uh, be responsible for other folks that are just now experiencing this. We got to try to help them understand what they're seeing isn't their mind. They're not losing their minds. It's really happening. It's a real thing.
I actually feel bad for the people that are coming into it now because I mean, we've had, 2 years to get,
Used to
yeah, like baby steps and, spoon fed and
Yeah,
jumping in a pool full of sharks.
yeah, right. Now
Yeah.
what?
And I think that other people's stories are very, very important, very important.
Right, right. And that's why I started this channel, because I wanted people to start hearing everybody's experience,
Right.
and understand how many things that we have in common, that, we've seen together and we just don't know it.
Right.
We don't share it because sometimes, we became a bit jaded to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
We're just used to it. Oh, look, there's a sign that wasn't there. Oh, look, you know,
Right.
at some point you just get, oh, hey, look, the building's gone. Oh, well,
Yeah, well, yeah, right. Oh, I'll have to go to Walmart, so I'll deal with that later.
yeah, right. It's gone. Who cares? It'll be back, or something else will be there tomorrow. Who knows?
Right. Right.
And you just get to a point where it's just another thing. It's one more day. Let's
Yeah.
let's keep going.
And I look at it now, if I have a day without experiencing something, I think that's kind of weird now because I'm so used to experiencing things that a day without it is like really weird now. It's like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, I didn't experience that. That what's going on,
I completely understand.
Like, is it going away? What's happening?
Right, is this done now or
Right?
I know.
And I'm
we
like, what would the purpose be? I don't understand. Not
yeah,
yet. I'm not ready.
yeah, it started and then it stopped and nobody had any idea why.
And
Yeah,
the weird thing about it is too, like we could share a lot of MEs, that we're familiar with, and we remember we have the same memory. And
sure.
then there'll be another ME where we just don't agree.
Yeah,
And that kind of control a person who's new to this completely off track.
yeah. I mean, but then you have to ask yourself a question, and that is, are we all experiencing this stuff together, or is this a personal experience that we can experience some things together, but there's going to be one or two things that you're just going to have different, and that's your personal me. I didn't see the hotel. You did.
What you just said, you nailed it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you nailed it because I believe that it's our own personal,
yeah,
yeah, experience. It's our own personal. Yeah, we might agree on some things, but at the end of the day, it's our own personal experience. It's our own.
you know and
It's
you
yeah.
ask you have to ask yourself, is it right, is it wrong? Maybe it's neither. Maybe it was just an experience.
It can't be right or wrong, right? Because it's your own personal
Yeah,
experience. There's no right
maybe
or
it's
wrong.
just a personal experience and we move on. It's just something to be experienced and then you move on.
Yeah,
And it's like that. You
yeah.
can't assign things to it. You can't, um, because the problem is we know. don't know why it happened. We don't know if we're causing it. We don't know if something else is causing it. We just don't know. And there's too many, factors. Um, Even if we did know, what then? You know, I mean, like, you think you're going to stop a worldwide phenomena?
Yeah, you're 100% right. And let me give you like an example, an analogy or something. I
Sure.
look at it this way. I look at it, okay, picture a ladder, and on the first step, it's the Mandela awakening. It's when you awoke, right? And on the very top step of the ladder is the answer to who did it and how they did it and why they did it, right?
Right.
Now, a lot of people that woke up and that are on that first step right away ignored all the steps in between and just jumped to the top of that ladder and want to know why, who did it, is it D Wave, is it Godzilla? Okay, without questioning, without going to those middle steps, and those middle steps are so important
Sure.
because when you stop, when you go on the second step and you look around and you go, what does this mean to me? What is it trying to show me?
Right.
And here when you go, it's trying to show me, myself personally, that reality is an illusion.
Yeah.
That what you see in the mirror as Gloria, as Tom, as a fireman, as a policeman, as a doctor, is not who you are.
No.
Who you are is a beautiful, beautiful, flawless soul, and you are here having a human experience.
Right.
And this ME is showing you that reality can change because reality is not real. Now, if you understand that in that middle step, you
Yeah.
have no need to go to the top step of that ladder to get the answers to who or why,
Yeah.
because it wouldn't matter.
Right.
It wouldn't matter because now you understand what you are, not who you are, but what you are and where you come from and why you're able to see this.
Right.
Who did it, whether it's CERN or whether it's Davy Crockett, it don't matter.
No, it really doesn't.
just matters that you're being shown that you are more than what you think you are.
Yeah, I think we all do our research just for our own peace of mind. You
Right.
know, I don't think in the end, we're going to resolve anything.
No, because it's your own personal thing. It's
But
gonna be your own personal answer.
right, but I do think that the research is important because it gives you um, a sense of control when there really isn't any. That's the best I can say. It gives you a sense of power. It gives you a sense of
Oh, yeah, yeah.
charge of your life when in reality, not so much. You know,
But don't lose track from going from the first step to the top.
oh
Listen to the middle, learn the middle, learn about yourself, learn what it's trying to show you, what it's trying to teach you. And
yeah,
then you'll be ready for the answer that's
well,
on the top step.
right. And I think discernment is a major part of that. Being
Hmm.
able to discern what you're being told, what you're being
Right,
taught. You know, I mean, you could be shown the truth, but if you have no idea what it is, it's
right.
really not useful. You
You
know,
know,
yeah,
I look at it this way too. If people right now are, the ones that are experiencing it, go to that top of the ladder and they get the answer. Oh, it was somebody flipped a switch and they were playing around with the frequency and they changed our reality and it was time travel. Everybody would go, oh, that's what it is. Well, they better stop because it's annoying me and I don't like it. And they would go on with their everyday life and never even think about it again. Not
yeah,
even stop to say, but then how could that even be done? Then things must be fake and maybe this is not real and maybe this is, you understand what
and
I'm.
maybe the person that told you that lied.
So, they got to do the research. They got to find themselves in the middle and see what they're going to learn about themselves through this.
Exactly, and
Mhm.
that's what the research is for.
Right.
It's to help us understand and to discern what we're looking at.
Yeah. You know that. I know that. And a lot of people just kind of, they're more into let's find the logo changes and let's find the residue. And sometimes you just got to step back because you get lost in that.
Yeah, and it
Forget what
scares
it's
and
about.
it scares you.
Yeah, you just, you fall to pieces. You forget what it's about.
Right.
Listen to what it's trying to say to you,
Exactly.
you know?
I couldn't have said it better.
I don't know if I said it good because sometimes I try to say things and it's like difficult for me to express it. I don't know.
I think you've said it perfectly, and we reached the end.
That's all.
Um, Everybody, if you enjoyed our show, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and thank you, Gloria, for coming on the show. I really appreciate your story. I really appreciate the insight you've given us, and I hope that you've helped some other people as well.
I hope so. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a great evening, folks.